She had to find people who remembered. The Russell Parr understood. You have to do what she told you!
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for those movie sequels that went completely unnoticed by most of us.
Assassin's Creed Chronicles Trilogy.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know.
Call of Duty Black Ops 3.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Number 20, Marley Me, The Puppy Years.
You just found yourself the best family ever! We're practically related now!
Marley Me was a surprise hit back in 2008 with Owen Wilson, Jennifer Aniston, and that oh-so-lovable Marley. The film took in over $247 million at the box office and had everyone who saw it shedding about that many tears at the sad ending. Given all that, it shouldn't surprise anyone that they made another Marley movie, except that it will surprise almost everyone.
With more fun, more mischief, and even more Marley.
Unfortunately, the 2011 film Marley and Me, The Puppy Years was a pathetic direct-to-video follow-up that didn't have any of the charm or heart of the original. They also decided to give Marley a speaking voice in this one.
Sorry.
Number 19, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny.
It should be locked away.
2000's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was nominated for a Best Picture Oscar, won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film, and was the first foreign language film to hit the $100 million mark in the United States. It's also one of the best movies of the 21st century thus far. The sequel, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, was released on Netflix in 2016 and holds a 23% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Michelle Yeoh did come back for the second movie, but the wonderful Yeoh wasn't enough to make this lazy sequel anything worthwhile, or, as it turns out, memorable.
Keep practicing.
Number 18, Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves.
What are you going to do about it, Thumbelina?
Many of us remember that in 1989, Rick Moranis shrunk the kids, and in 1992, he blew one of them up. But how many of you recall that in 1997, he shrunk himself, along with his wife, brother, and sister-in-law? If you were fans of the first two films in the franchise and are wondering how you missed that third movie in the theatres, one reason could be that it was never released in theatres. For Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, Walt Disney Pictures went the direct-to-video route with this one, which we can only assume shrunk their audience for the film as well. Get it?
What's in it?
Zelinsky Brothers.
Number 17, Legally Blondes.
Hey, don't get too comfortable. This won't take long.
There are a couple of reasons most of us have never heard of this 2009 film. The first is because Reese Witherspoon isn't in it, and who wants a Legally Blonde movie without Reese, right? And the second reason is because it was never supposed to be a movie in the first place. Originally intended as the pilot for a spin-off television series, the pilot was converted into this 82-minute straight-to-DVD film about Elle Woods' British twin cousins.
Proving that anyone with this style of backpack could have used their key to gain access to Mr. Lopez's backpack, stealing his 000 key, and committing the crime.
It made its TV premiere on ABC Family a few months later. For anyone wondering, it's exactly what you'd expect from an ABC Family movie, and we don't mean that in a good way.
Girls, there's something I've been meaning to tell you.
He's amazing here, Dad. Love you.
Number 16, American Psycho 2.
A girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do.
American Psycho was an excellent satirical psychological horror film featuring smart and engaging writing with a brilliant performance from Christian Bale. American Psycho 2, starring Mila Kunis, was none of those things.
You were in Patrick Bateman's apartment that night he killed Clara.
Yeah.
In fact, it wasn't even originally supposed to be a sequel to American Psycho. Originally entitled The Girl Who Wouldn't Die, they made a few changes after production began in order to connect it to the 2000 Bale movie. And as much as we don't remember it, there are many who wish they could forget it. Including Kunis herself, who when speaking about the film said, quote, "When I did the second one, it was supposed to be a different project, and it was re-edited, but ooh, I don't know, bad."
I noticed you were judging me. Is that fair?
Number 15, Roadhouse 2.
You as tough as your daddy was? Opinions vary.
Fans of 1989's Roadhouse starring Patrick Swayze were probably pretty excited about the 2024 Roadhouse remake starring Jake Gyllenhaal, but were they as excited about the 2006 sequel Roadhouse 2? Well, they might have been had they known it existed. You'd think that a film that had built up such a cult following and rabid fanbase as Roadhouse would have gotten a sequel with a theatrical release and a big marketing push behind it, but instead we got Roadhouse 2, a direct-to-video piece of mediocrity that had at least one critic telling people to ignore the film and just go and rewatch the original.
Who the hell are you? Take your pretty ass somewhere else.
Number 14, Splash 2.
Remember, don't let anybody find out about,
Remember at the end of Splash when Madison the Mermaid tells Alan that if he goes to live in the sea with her that he will never be able to live on land again? Yeah, well neither did the writers of the 1988 made-for-TV sequel, Splash 2, which sees Alan and Madison return to New York and attempt to appear like a normal married couple.
Maybe we could be the all-American couple. We'd better be. That's what Carl's looking for.
The film first aired on ABC over 2 consecutive Sundays on the Disney Sunday Movie, and featured a completely new cast from the 1984 hit that we all remember fondly. The sequel, however, not so much.
Maybe I'll never fit in here.
Number 13, another 9.5 weeks.
I certainly hope this leads somewhere.
1986's 9.5 Weeks was a graphic erotic thriller, at least outside of the United States. In the US, the film was heavily edited and performed poorly. Internationally, it played in its original form and did much better. The film did finally get an uncut release in the United States, but that was in 1998, a year after the release of the direct-to-video sequel, Another 9.5 Weeks, titled Love in Paris Outside of America.
Wanna play?
What's the game?
It's a game of chance.
Mickey Rourke returned for the sequel, and this time he finds himself erotically entwined with Angie Everett, instead of Kim Basinger. At least 50 people saw the film, according to the audience Rotten Tomato numbers. But given the 19% score, it's probably better that you weren't one of them.
Where are you going?
Number 12, Staying Alive.
I promised my mother I'd never do any nudity. I guess she's afraid that I might get a cold or something, huh?
Staying Alive isn't just the name of the Bee Gees song that opens up the classic 1977 film Saturday Night Fever. It's also the name of the hit sequel made 6 years later. Yes, we said hit. Directed by Sylvester Stallone and starring John Travolta, Staying Alive somehow made over $127 million at the box office on a $22 million budget. So it's probably fair to say that folks in 1983 heard about and probably even saw this sequel. However, what we haven't told you yet is just how bad it is. We're talking 0% Rotten Tomato score bad. We're talking worst sequel ever bad, at least according to Entertainment Weekly. This makes it easier to understand how Staying Alive got lost in the trash heap of cinematic history.
I don't want anybody ever laughing at me. Who are you? Somebody special? What you ever do means anything.
Number 11, The Birds 2, Land's End. Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds is remembered these days as one of the greatest horror movies ever made. On the other hand, the made-for-TV film The Birds 2 Land's End is barely remembered at all, and those that do remember it do so with regret and dismay.
Why, is there something special about it?
No, I just never come across one like it, that's all.
Especially many of those involved in making it. The director, Rick Rosenthal, is credited as Alan Smithy in the film, a moniker used by directors who want to distance themselves from a project. Tippi Hedren, the star of the original film, appears in a little cameo in the sequel, but called the whole thing embarrassing and horrible. When asked what Hitchcock would think of the film, Hedren responded, "I'd hate to think what he'd say."
Isn't this the damnedest thing you've ever seen?
Number 10, WarGames, The Dead Code.
Scenario selected. Target Tehran, Iran.
Can you at least pick a target that won't destroy the entire world?
Given the popularity of the 1983 film, there was most definitely an audience for a sequel in the 80s. There was probably even an audience, albeit an older one, for a sequel in 2008. But while we did get one that year, most people probably didn't even know about it.
You have selected Sarah. 80,000 dead.
WarGames, The Dead Code, went direct to video in 2008, and there aren't even enough critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes for it to register a score. Also, the best thing any critic said about it was, quote, "As far as direct to DVD sequels go, you can do a lot worse." Nice.
Projected result, total annihilation.
Number 9. Rings.
So, you're looking for the girl.
If you thought the Ring franchise ended in 2005 with The Ring 2, you're wrong. 12 years later, the franchise about the deadly videotape was back in theaters with Rings. Naomi Watts didn't return, and neither did Erin Kruger, who wrote the first 2 screenplays. But the videotape was back, and the movie did make a little over $83 million at the box office. It got a C- audience cinema score, and is rocking at 8% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. There had been talk of making more Rings movies, but that just hasn't happened yet. Or maybe it has and we just haven't heard about it. Number 8. Blair Witch.
I can't stay here another night, Peter. I can't stay here another night, okay?
Hey, you need a rest.
1999's The Blair Witch Project was a cinematic phenomenon, and became one of the most profitable films of all time. And although the 2000 sequel, Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2, was pretty terrible, it came out the year after the first one, so at least it was still part of the public consciousness at the time. The same cannot be said for 2016's Blair Witch though. Most critics agree that the Blair Witch direct sequel, while not very good, is better than the first attempt at a second film. But given that it came out over a decade and a half after the original, it didn't have the same cultural impact or staying power in our horror consciousness.
Just keep your eyes closed. It only takes sacrifices. We can't look directly at it.
Number 7. Bad Santa 2.
Hey, keep those coming, will you?
What were you doing at the end of November in 2016? Well, based on box office numbers, you probably weren't seeing Bad Santa 2. The film only grossed $9 million in its first 5 days, and went on to an unimpressive $24.1 million in total. Unlike many films on this list though, its star Billy Bob Thornton came back for part 2, and it got a big theatrical release in thousands of theaters.
Well, it looks to me like you jackals already got the whole job figured out. What do you need me for?
But whether it was because Bad Santa 2 was bad or because it was too many years since the great 2003 original, the sequel made very little noise. And the noise it did make, most of us just didn't hear.
He's always been too goddamn soft. Probably because he was born early. Hell, I didn't even know I'd given birth until I tripped over him.
Number 6. Tremors 2 Aftershocks.
What the hell is that?
Yep, 6 years later, the human-eating underground worm-like monsters came back. But this time, Kevin Bacon did not. The Baconator starred in the first Tremors movie, but didn't come back for the sequel. Despite no Bacon, the second film was actually pretty good, and TV Guide even called this direct-to-video production worthy of its theatrical predecessor.
What the hell's it doing? I have no idea.
If you haven't heard of this one, we're going to assume you also had no idea about the 5 more films they made over the next 25 years. Tremors 3, Back to Perfection, Tremors 4, The Legend Begins, Tremors 5, Bloodlines, Tremors, A Cold Day in Hell, and Tremors, Shrieker Island. Seriously, wow.
Of course we are willing to pay. Of course they're willing to pay.
Number 5. Mean Girls 2. Mean Girls was a hit back in 2004, and you might have heard that they made a Broadway musical that premiered on stage in 2018. You might also be in the know about the 2024 Mean Girls movie, which is itself a musical and inspired by the aforementioned Broadway show, all of which were written by Tina Fey, by the way.
That seems fair. 120 calories and 48 calories from fat. What percent is that?
And then there is Mean Girls 2, the 2011 made-for-TV movie that Tina Fey had nothing to do with, that premiered on ABC Family and was met with pretty harsh reviews.
It's too late for people to change their votes.
Tim Meadows did reprise his role as principal though, so that's something.
Unless you have proof, there's nothing I can do except expel you.
Number 4. S. Darko.
4 days, 17 hours, 26 minutes, 31 seconds.
S. Darko, aka S. Darko, a Donnie Darko tale, is set 7 years after the events of Donnie Darko, and tells the story of Donnie's sister Samantha, who sleepwalks, hallucinates, and might be able to time travel. The first film became a big cult hit, but this second one flew way under the radar.
Done a lot of bad things.
Do you want to do something else?
But while most of us have never heard of the film, you know who has? The director of the first film, Richard Kelly, although he wishes he never had. As he said in one interview, quote, "I hate it when people ask me about that sequel. I had nothing to do with it. I've never seen it, and I never will." Number 3. A Dangerous Man, Lawrence After Arabia.
I doubt their entry into Damascus made quite such an impression as it was.
For many of us, Ralph Fiennes first came to our attention playing Eamon Goth in Schindler's List. However, he actually came to director Steven Spielberg's attention after playing T.E. Lawrence in the made-for-TV Lawrence of Arabia unofficial sequel, A Dangerous Man, Lawrence After Arabia.
You think you can work everything out in private and win your case behind closed doors.
Whereas David Lean's 1962 epic depicts T.E. Lawrence during the First World War, A Dangerous Man deals with Lawrence and events after the war. The first film aired on British television in 1990, before coming to PBS in the United States a couple years later.
No one would ever have known. So you see, I was born to it, and I have sustained it throughout my life.
Number 2. My Summer Story.
The feeling of foreboding was creeping over me.
1983's A Christmas Story has become one of the most beloved Christmas films of all time. But did you know there was a sequel? And no, we aren't talking about 2012's direct-to-DVD A Christmas Story 2, or HBO Max's 2022 A Christmas Story Christmas. We're talking about 1994's My Summer Story, released in the theatres originally as It Runs in the Family.
Suddenly the air was charged. I stepped up. Cockiness oozing from every pore.
So, why haven't you heard of it? Maybe because it doesn't have Christmas Story in the title, or because delays in production forced a total recast of the movie. Don't feel bad about not knowing about this one though. It only made $71,000 at the box office, so no one really knew it existed in 1994 either.
You know, I was thinking. You were thinking? Whoa!
The old man always did that, pretend an earthquake was happening when somebody said they were thinking.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2.
Come on! I hear sometimes they run out of peanuts!
There's only one movie in the Vacation franchise that doesn't star Chevy Chase and Beverly D'Angelo. That film is the 2003 made-for-TV movie National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2, also known as National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation 2 Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure.
Well, that's a real good idea, Mookie Nookie. An island Christmas. Why not think of that?
This sequel to the much-loved 1989 National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation film focuses on Randy Quaid's cousin Eddie character and his family who, through a series of events, get stranded on a deserted island at Christmas. A vacation movie that doesn't star Chevy Chase? No wonder we never heard of it. So, do any of these sequels ring a bell? Let us know in the comments.
I knew you wanted to see me again.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.